to give a label to that mystery and say it's an evolutionary byproduct. So hospitals, survival of the unfittest, evolutionary byproduct. If you do that, there's no point in having a conversation, because it's an unfalsifiable hypothesis. Because anything that fits in line with survival and reproduction, you say, hey, that's mine, survival and reproduction. Anything that doesn't, you say, well, it's a byproduct.
No, but we could do exactly what you've said, which is we could say, hey, it's a mystery, we're still trying to work out how that is.
No, I don't want to say it's a mystery. I want to say from an atheistic perspective it makes no sense. And since atheists pretend to be clever, and they pretend to be rational, and they pretend to throw out terms which they don't understand, then how dare they claim they are rational when they can't give an explanation for the origin of reason? When I, as a Muslim, I can say, well, do you know what? Have a good day. If you want to pretend to be clever, that's absolutely fine, but you can't even give an explanation for the origin of reason.
Okay, so what sort of explanation would satisfy you?
Wait, I never said there's an explanation that's going to satisfy me.
No, not any.
I said there is no satisfactory explanation from your perspective when you guys pretend to be so clever.
Okay, but you said it was impossible, correct?
From a naturalistic point of view, yes.
Okay, so can you demonstrate why that's impossible?
Okay, I'll demonstrate not why I think it's impossible, but why philosophers of science like Alex Rosenberg believes it's impossible.
You tell me.
Okay.
You're throwing out names, but just
okay. Here's why. If I want to survive, because all that they actually have in terms of a worldview, are you paying attention?
Yes, I am. I'm making a note here.
All that they have is survival and reproduction as an explanation for biochemistry, genetics, anatomy, psychology, linguistics. That's all they have. So the problem comes when you try to give an explanation about true and false beliefs. That's one layer of problem. So say that mushrooms. Now some mushrooms are poisonous. Now you can survive on a false belief, which is that all mushrooms are poisonous. You can survive on that belief. So if you can survive on a true belief, and if you can survive on a false belief, how can you make a distinction between the two? You can't. So what the actual fundamental problem from that layer is, how can we say our mind is trustworthy when our mind wasn't geared for truth but survival?
Okay, so one of the ones that I've heard and is of interest to me that I'm studying is...
Do you understand it, or are you socialized into it?
I'm looking into it.
No, are you socialized, or do you understand it?
Socialized means that I've just grown up with it, isn't it?
No. Society is saying, woo, 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 this thing's true, so you say it's true too. It's like sheeps following each other.
Is that what you really think atheists do?
I truly believe 100% that's exactly what they do, and I made that claim that you do that too.
That's 100% of the atheists?
Yes.
Well,
it's a social thing. It's a social thing.
Because people study, like literally, they do have the curiosity to study. They read books, they go...
Sure. So can I tell you one reason why it's totally false? This whole new atheist movement, based on this total nonsensical idea that there's no God. I'll tell you why it's totally false, and they're all sheep. Every single new atheist. I'm not referring to somebody who's confused about God. I'm referring to new atheism. Why they're a bunch of sheep is because of this. The book that they follow, the God delusion, the central argument that they follow in that Bible is a 6-step process, and that's called the central argument. And that central argument, it basically is this. Darwinism gives an explanation of biodiversity, so we don't need a designer to explain that. Therefore, the conclusion that Richard Dawkins, their prophet, makes is their God almost certainly doesn't exist. Now, Charles Darwin himself would have disagreed with that conclusion. This is why neo-atheism is based on a falsehood. Darwin was never an atheist. He was a deist. He believed there was a God, but not a personal God, not Christianity or Islam or anything like that. The last decade of his life, because of the problem of evil, he became an agnostic. But he still said, my beliefs about God fluctuate. Sometimes he's a deist, sometimes he's an agnostic. So this whole movement online that you see, all these videos that you see, all these people that you say, oh, evolution is true, therefore there's no God, or Darwin got it right. Even the founder doesn't agree with that. Plus, Richard Dawkins in an interview, do you know what he said? He was sitting with Lawrence Krauss. He said, there's a perception that if you believe in evolution, you have to be an atheist. This perception's false. Because this because this perception, the perception exists that because evolution is true, therefore there's no God. He says that this perception is wrong. But because this perception exists, that to believe in evolution you have to disbelieve in God, he says all I have to do is prove to people that evolution is true, therefore God doesn't exist. So he is feeding on the ignorance of people.
But that's not 100% of the atheists.
Okay, this is a new atheism. New atheism. New atheism. New atheism. I'm not referring to every single Tom, Dick and Harry who's confused about God. I'm referring to new atheism, which I believe Rob is part of.
Well, okay, so I don't.
Are you part of that?
I don't subscribe to that. So no.
Oh, that's great.
So you should ask.
So when you refer to people like Essence of Thought, when you refer to people like Aaron Ra, when you refer to people like Richard Dawkins, they are.
Well, I didn't refer to Richard Dawkins, did I?
No, Essence of Thought.
Jerry Coyne, sorry.
Jerry Coyne.
Okay,
So-
Jerry Coyne is.
Jerry Coyne is what?
He's a new atheist.
Your claim about a new atheist, yeah.
No, he is one.
If you say so. I don't know what he's...
So
what he
is
labels
Aaron
himself.
Ra not one?
You tell me. I don't know.
Okay, so when they
He's
have
just an atheist.
conferences...
What's the difference?
Well, it's a new brand. It's an old idea.
By the
it's
way-
an old underwear or whatever. They just cleaned it out and they just want to start wearing it again. It's nothing new. The only difference between the new atheists and the old atheists like Nietzsche is this. Nietzsche was honest because he understood from a naturalistic point of view, words, meanings, actions are all meaningless. This whole universe, just how irrational as it is, if an apple falls off a tree, falls on a tree and cuts in two, it's a rearrangement of atoms. Likewise, if I bludgeon myself with a hammer, there's no difference because it's rearrangement of atoms. That's why neo-atheism is different to old atheism.
Neo-atheism?
But the new atheism.
New atheism.
New atheism is different to old atheism because old atheism was at least not hypocritical. They knew there was no meaning of life. They knew there's no such thing as rights, values, morals. These are all social constructs. They knew this. But you guys pretend like you have something when you don't.
That's your assertion.
No, I'm happy to make that assertion. I want to know if you can challenge it.
Tell me which one.
Life is meaningless and it's nothing but the rearrangement of carbon under an atheistic worldview.
Okay, so you mean there's no... So if I reinterpret what you say, if that's okay, you tell me if I'm right or wrong. So if there's no cosmic why, then we're just carbon. The fact that I can give myself my own life meaning, that's not good enough for you. For some reason there has to be a cosmic why. There has to be a cosmic reason for the universe being the way it is. And if there isn't, then we're just matter.
Okay. I'm not sure if you understand what the problem here is. The problem, as pointed out by Nietzsche, is this. This idea of self, of me, of I, of meaning, of morals, of values are nothing but the products of nature. And if you rerun the wire, you know, in the old days we used to have the VHS tapes, if you go back and rewind time and then you push it forward again, there'll be a completely different set of morals, values and meanings.
Who makes that claim?
This is a claim that Darwin believed in. This is a claim which Steven Pinker believes in. The analogy is taken from another atheist, Stephen Jay Gould, and back in his days in the 80s and 90s we only had VHS. That's why he used the analogy of the tape. He said if you rewind and then play again, you just get a completely different set. Therefore, it's arbitrary.
What is arbitrary?
All meaning, value, all of these things, they're just one outcome of many.
But we can give ourselves, we can give our lives...
No, sure, that sounds really nice, but Nietzsche would have disagreed with you. He would have said, that's just self-delusion. That's just some kid who is about to get hit by a football and he closes his eyes. He's like, no, it's gone now.
Why would you say that?
No, why would I say that? I'm not saying that because I believe in God. I'm saying Nietzsche said that and Nietzsche argued for that. And the reason why he believed in this is he believed Europe is going to go through a crisis of existence in the future. Because it's going to, right now it's in this delusion state, it's coming out of the intoxication of religion and it has values, meanings, morals, but eventually it's going to realize it's nothing. And that's when it's going to go mad.
Okay, why on earth would you think that?
Nietzsche.
Yeah.
He believed that if there is no God, there is no purpose, there is no objective meaning, all that we are is the rearrangement of carbon, then anything, any action that we take is as meaningful as a leaf dropping from a tree.
That sounds, dare I say it, ridiculous.
Okay, well, look, read Nietzsche's book on Darwinism.
The fact that
It's actually called Nietzsche's Darwinism, published by Oxford. Read that. Nietzsche's Darwinism.
Nietzsche's Darwinism. Okay, and so why should I take that as truth, or why should I pay attention to that? My life and any other atheist or non-believer's life, we can give ourselves...
Okay, so why would you disagree with Nietzsche? Because I gave you why Nietzsche believes what he believes. So if I was Nietzsche and you were here, how would you explain how your worldview is different to mine, firstly?
Is your worldview as Nietzsche a theistic worldview?
No, he was an atheist.
How was he an atheist? Okay.
Of course he was an atheist.
Right.
Okay, so how is your worldview different to mine?
So I would say to Nietzsche, well, I can give my life meaning. I can have interactions with people, I can try and find truth, I can go for love, etc., etc. What's wrong with that?
He would say this is just dopamine.
Why would he say that?
Dopamine is a chemical
I know what dopamine is. Why would he say that?
Because that's what it is.
Why would he say that? What justification is for... In other words...
That's science.
Is he claiming...
Right? You love science, right?
Sure.
So love is a chemical.
Partly a chemical, but it's an interaction with the brain, isn't it? And
right.
You have a chemical here and you give it a label.
Right. So it's all chemicals.
No, it's not all chemicals. Well, it is chemicals in a sense.
Wait, hang on a second.
Because not just
life is, look, tell me if I'm wrong, but when you say you're an atheist, I'm assuming you believe that biology can be broken down into chemistry, which can be broken down into physics, which can be broken down into maths, because that's the standard view of the atheist. Thank you for nodding. And I'm guessing you're an atheist. If that is the case, then what's wrong with all of our feelings being just chemicals? Because you sound like an upset atheist.
Like
an upset atheist. You don't like the idea that it's all chemicals.
Is consciousness chemicals?
Well, firstly, there's different definitions of consciousness, and it depends whether you believe the hard problem of consciousness exists. So that's a different issue. I don't know if you believe in that.
I'm not entirely sure, but I do know that we have consciousness. Would you agree?
Well,
consciousness is...
Of course, but it depends what you mean, because according to some people, consciousness is the brain at work. According to other people, consciousness is a part of the universe, panpsychism. According to other people, emergent materialism. Now's the time to bring it in, because actually we're talking about something correct, in the correct context. So it depends what you actually mean, but from a biochemical point of view, life breaks down to biochemistry from your point of view, even consciousness, if you're a pure naturalist.
I don't know that it breaks down to biological as a naturalist. I can't say that for sure with consciousness. Well, because we don't.
That's what atheism entails, unless you're not an atheist.
I am an atheist.
Okay, so you believe in naturalism. Things are natural, correct?
So I'm a methodological naturalist. Yeah.
You're a methodological naturalist? So am I. I thought you were a philosophical naturalist.
No.
So you don't believe everything can be broken down into nature?
I believe that nature, or the world around us, is what we can investigate. Outside of that, I don't claim, and I never have here at Speaker's Corner, that a God or gods is impossible. I say I don't believe in it, and I reject the theist claim.
So why are you trying to give an explanation of reason, of evolution, of these things naturalistically?
Because that seems to be the most reasonable way. What other explanation am I going to give? Something outside of the universe?
No. The question is this. Whenever you want to use nature, whenever you want to use methodological naturalism, you're going to say, okay, let's try and work out things naturalistically. Correct. That's absolutely fine. Yeah. But your claim is very different, because your claim is atheism. You believe there is not a God.
I believe there's not a God.
Now,
yes.
With science explains how things work, not why things exist in the first place. That's metaphysics. So when it comes to God is an explanation of why things exist. Okay, but science can explain how things work. So what's your problem with God then?
You want to ask my problem with God?
Yeah.
Okay, so many things. One is, I think it's which God, by the way, before we carry on?
Okay, Darwin's God, deistic God.
Deistic God is I've got less of a problem with a deistic God. It still has to overcome a burden of proof for me for existing. But a theistic version of a God, and let's use your one, I've got a lot more problems with.
Go ahead.
Sure. So I think your God is irrational, immoral. There's contradictory omni-properties as well.
Okay, wait. Let's go with the first thing you said, irrational.
Yeah.
You believe it's irrational to believe in God?
No, I didn't say it's irrational to believe in God. I said God, the concept of God.
Okay.
Is
now,
irrational.
and it's a good segue, what you just said now, to something that we spoke about half an hour ago, which is this. We spoke about the origin of reason being a problem for atheism, right? You're saying the belief in God is irrational. Let me link these two and tell you something which I want you to challenge. The existence of God is the only explanation for rationality.
Yes, I've heard that.
You've heard that, but do you believe it's true? Do you believe it's wrong?
Okay, so what do you mean by rationality?
Our ability to think, reflect, infer, do science, do maths, use experience, have intuition.
Okay, so and your claim is that the only way we can account for this is through God?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's again where I would go back to emergent materialism or evolutionary reliability.
Okay.
Reliabilism.
Please, Rob. I was a Quaker and you're going to turn me into a speaker's corner shouting guy again. Do not use terms you don't understand. Origin of reason has nothing to do with emergent materialism. It's consciousness.
Okay, but
it makes you sound clever, but it's got nothing to do with this. Throw it out. Throw it out. I'm a Quaker, and you made me break my biscuit again. When you speak about the origin of reason, it's very clever to use terms that you don't understand. That's fine. But what you need to do is give an explanation, not give a mystery a label.
So you asked for an account of rationality, yes?
Here's my claim. Here's my claim. From an atheistic point of view, there is no explanation for the origin of reason. From a theistic point of view, there is. Not a deistic point of view or a theistic point of view, there is.
Okay, and what is that?
So there's two claims I make. So we're not going to speak about the atheistic. We're going to accept that claim.
So your account, or you want me to give an account of rationality, yes?
You've already shown you can't do that, so let's move on to my claim.
No, let's not do that. Let's not do that. What is rationality based on? What is it based on? What's the foundation of rationality?
Like I told you a few minutes ago, there's a whole bunch of definitions of rationality. Where does it actually reside? The ability to reason, the ability to infer,
what is the foundation of that?
What do you mean? What's the foundation of that?
Is the foundation for that our consciousness, our minds? Can a rock do
Okay, wait 1 second. You keep doing this. You keep talking about things which are irrelevant to the discussion. Why do you bring in consciousness with reasoning?
Because I want to understand what your foundation is.
No, what you're doing is this, Rob. You're using terms which make you sound clever, but you don't understand them. How can you say the origin of reason is within consciousness?
Can animals, because you want me to give an account of rationality, can animals rationalize things?
Okay.
Or is it only humans that can do it?
No, animals can reason too. How on earth, wait, 1 second. How on earth do you think they make these amazing beehives?
Don't jump.
No.
You asked me about rationality. Don't talk about reason and rationality. They're different. You said, how do they reason? I'm asking you rationality. You said to me...
Reason and rationality are different? How so?
You asked me about rationality. Yes?
Reason and rationality, how are they different?
Just wait. You asked me about rationality.
Yep.
And you said to me, I don't have a foundation. I want to know from you...
you have no foundation.
Yes, so I want to understand from you, what is rationality based on? Once we get down to what you believe rationality is based on, now we can have a conversation, because it's a term that's just floating out there. So give me the foundation. Is it based on a conscious mind?
Okay, let me just take it this way. Not only I'm gonna just to save time, I'm gonna give you the full beans, and if you want to challenge it, you can challenge it. We have, as human beings, certain qualities. One of the main qualities that we actually have is the ability to reason. Now, the ability to reason is the thing which is going to lead you to truth or lead you to falsehood. In the Quran it says, the worst creatures in the sight of God are those who do not reason. And the people who will be sent to hellfire, which I believe atheists, as it says in Islam, will go to hellfire.
At least you're honest, I appreciate that.
Of course they will.
Because there's some Muslims who say, no, you won't. Or God will make a decision.
Well, I believe anybody who disbelieves in God as a category, they go to hell. But I don't believe a person, you can say, goes to hell. Because I believe even an atheist, if they die, and if God has mercy on them, they may go paradise. I can't say about a person. But as a category, atheists go to hell. Yeah, that's fine. Now, in regards to reasoning, in the Quran it makes it clear. When people will be sent to hellfire, the angels which are sending them to hellfire will ask them, did you not listen? Did you not reason? And they said no. What did they do? And this is what atheists do, like sheep. They just listen, they just follow. They don't even think for themselves. So that is the reason they're going to go to hell. Now the reason why I, as a Muslim, I believe that reason has the best explanation in God is because of this. God as a concept is all-knowing. And we human beings also have knowledge. God is the one who created us. And He created us for a higher reason, for a higher purpose than survival and reproduction. So the problem, the quagmire that you're in, is that how do you distinguish between false beliefs and true beliefs when both help you survive? But as a Muslim, I'll say that's nonsense. I'll say truth is not a mechanism, truth is not a concept that we derive to help us survive. Truth exists because God is the truth. So from the truth in Arabic, God is called Al-Haq, the truth. So from the truth you get the concept of truth today as human beings. So we can reason, we can use our cognitive abilities because they are a God-given gift. That's a theistic explanation of the origin of reason. But from an atheistic perspective, all you can do is speak about survival and reproduction, which is something which cannot even account for the difference between us choosing whether a mushroom is poisonous or not. Which is why I believe, like I've said many times in our long conversation here, atheists, including yourselves, you do not understand what you're actually talking about, and it's all a social, behavioral belief system. Somebody is walking, they see there's a shop which is very busy, they see another shop which is not busy, social proof, they walk towards the crowd where there's more people. This sheepish behavior is exactly what atheists actually do, which is exactly what you are actually doing here in Speaker's Corner. And what I want you to do is this: whether it comes to the origin of reason, whether it comes to Darwinian evolution, whether it comes to the existence of God or the non-existence of God, I want you to just be honest and say, I'm a sheep, I believe because other people believe. It's much more honest for you, it's much more honest for you, Rob, to do that than to half pretend, well, I'm sort of reading a book on evolution but I believe it to be true. I would actually respect you so much more if you did that.
Good, well,
May I interject? Just
This guy thinks he's different.
look. There are 2 points which I want to point to tell you. First is that your logic that if God exists, we should believe in His word and see reality through His eyes. But that still requires that you prove the existence of God, and God created the man. So your logical conclusion is right, but you haven't yet proven the truthfulness of the premise. As that God exists and He created us, right? So there's no proof for that to get to the final conclusion. The next thing is that
Okay. Because I was could you just could you say that again? I need to hear you out.
So your logic chain was correct, saying that if God created us, we should see.
No, I didn't say if. I said God did.
Yeah, but that's one of your premise to get to a conclusion, but you have to still prove the premise, which personally, as an atheist, that's why I am an atheist, because there hasn't been enough proof for me to believe in the existence of God that created me and gave me the reason that you are arguing about. The second moment I want to prove to
one thing at a time. I'm going to forget otherwise. Okay. One thing
I'll let you do
one thing at a time. You speak about proof.
Yeah.
I just gave you a concept which is the origin of reason.
Shovel to him. He's starting to dig his hole now.
we'll see.
I just gave you an explanation of the origin of reason in terms of theism.
Yeah.
And what I did is I not only gave an explanation of the origin of reason according to theism, I also said it is impossible from an atheistic perspective to have an explanation for the origin of reason. Now you say proof, right? How can you use a term like proof when the term proof assumes rationality? Rationality doesn't make sense unless God exists. So the only thing that you have is this. You only have two possibilities right now. You can either say, yes, rationality does exist, the origin of reason does exist, and it's because of God. Or two, you can say it doesn't exist, and this argument doesn't make sense, but then the word proof is meaningless.
But then you're saying that I, as an atheist, I cannot reason just because I don't believe in God. But what is reason? Like the understanding of the consequences of your action? Is this like reasoning? Would that be considered reasoning? That you understand the consequences of your action. That is the basic factor for me.
That is one process of reason, yeah.
And why is?
But what I'm saying is this. Look, let's just boil down to this, right?
Okay.
When people say, "Look, I'm an atheist. I need evidence. I need proof," but for them to ask proof, they're using their reason. Yeah. They're using their rationality, and they cannot account for their rationality except by God.
But that is fine.
So what they're actually doing is this: they're asking for evidence, but them asking for evidence is evidence for the existence of God, but they don't realize it.
No, you're going in a kind of a circular type of argument. Yes. That it does like. Okay,
let me make it clear for you. I'm going to put it in another way, which is this: no God, no reason to trust your reason.
Okay, so
that's basically another way of saying what I just said.
So you're saying,
which is what I'm saying right now is exactly what people, atheist philosophers of science, when they speak about the origin of reason, this is what they're actually referring to. If naturalism is all that we actually have, we can't trust our reasoning capabilities. We have no explanation for it.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you have to put God as an explanation for it.
Okay, but you got two choices, yes or no. Either our reasoning abilities are trustworthy. No, if no is the case, everything we're saying is gibberish. If yes is the case, then the only explanation is a non-naturalistic one. So between these two, you've got two choices. You can either go with theism, or you can become a hypocritical atheist pretending to use reason but not accounting for it.
No, you see, I'm not following this part. If you're saying, if we ought to trust our reason, we ought to believe there's God. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm saying not using your reason, because you can use your reason and be an atheist, a deist, a Hindu, a Taoist, whatever. That's irrelevant.
I'll have a discussion with this point in a bit.
The origin of reason, the explanation of this trait which distinguishes us from the animal world. The other animals can use reason, but our ability to go to space, to do quantum mechanics, to do all these things, this amazing quality that we actually have, which is far beyond what survival and reproduction requires. Survival and reproduction, just E and mate, E and mate, E and mate, that's all it is. But we know as human beings, some of the most smartest human beings, they didn't use their reasoning abilities to survive and reproduce, such as even Richard Dawkins. Now Richard Dawkins is supposed to be a clever guy, atheists love him. How many children does he have? One, from one wife. But that doesn't make sense from a Darwinian point of view. He should be bonking women all the time. If someone asks you how many children do you have, I lost count. That is what Darwinian prediction would show. Yet he spends a lot of his time writing books against religion, but his writing of books against religion makes no sense from a Darwinian point of view.
Why do you call it against religion?
Okay, no, I understand what you're saying.
Do you understand?
I understand what you're saying, but, well, it still fits in my model of how, we evolve as a species, as a society. Of course, well, it is, I think, what I'm trying to say is, I think a society and a human being and a family, like if you're thinking just in terms of evolution, Darwinism and survival, has a higher chance of surviving if they actually explore, reason, think more than chimps or other animals did. And it makes perfect sense in this model.
Now, here's why it doesn't make sense within the model. And this is not according to me, this is according to mainstream evolutionary secular biologists.
Let's see.
It doesn't make sense because, one, we have reasoning abilities which far exceed the requirements of survival and reproduction. Two, we have natural selection which is blind to anything which is true or false. Natural selection only sees that which gives it reproductive or survival value. This is why natural selection cannot distinguish between a true belief and a false belief. Even Steven Pinker, an evolutionary psychologist, he is probably the most well-known evolutionary psychologist in the world. He admits that natural selection has geared us for survival, not for truth. And reasoning is about arriving at that which is true, not that which helps you survive.
It's still... I don't see why this doesn't fit in the,
okay, do you know what? Here's what I recommend you do. Put together a little synopsis. Say, can Darwinian evolution explain the origin of reason? Get it peer reviewed, get it published, you will become a billionaire. This is big business.
No.
And the people who are involved, the people who are at the top, they agree. Even Darwin, like I said, he said, would I trust the convictions of a monkey's mind? No. So how can I trust a mind which evolved like that? So all that you actually have as an atheist is this. You have the claim of using your reason, but the only way of accounting for that is the very thing which you claim against and you define yourself against, which is theism.
It's again a circular type of thinking, but again, the fact that we don't yet understand
how is it circular? What I'm saying to you is exactly what evolutionary psychologists say.
But that doesn't.
So why are they doing circular reasoning? Not me. Why are they doing circular reasoning?
The only thing they are saying is that they just haven't found a way to show how this happened.
They're not saying we haven't found a way. They're saying we have found that natural selection only accounts for survival, not truth. They're not making a claim of ignorance, they're making a claim of knowledge.
Okay, I will stop at this point because that's my limitation of knowledge, but I'll have to go back.
Evolutionary psychology, do you know what? There's a really important, I would say, what Darwin got wrong. Right? No, getting Darwin wrong, right? It's a book on psychology, and it speaks about, evolutionary psychology, disagreements with Steven Pinker, a new approach. It's got all of this stuff, right? All of this field is got loads of vibrant people disagreeing with each other, but something that nobody disagrees with within the field is currently, as it stands, unless there is a revolution in the way that we think about biodiversity, we actually get rid of Darwin.
Which might happen.
Which we get rid of Darwin.
We get on top of it.
We get rid of Darwinism, and we replace it with maybe a complete alternative. There is no explanation for the origin of reason.
So your choice is to put God in that?
No, my choice is this. There's two different things here. There is an explanation of the origin of reason from a philosophical point of view, in which I would say, yes, God is the best explanation. Okay. From a scientific point of view, I would take methodological naturalism and I'll say, go as far as you can. Well, look, don't think that religious people are anti-science.
No, right? I'm not saying
right?
that. I'm saying
it's not as simple as somebody's writing a mathematical formula on the board, and in between I rub off some of it and I just write God. It doesn't work like that. We don't believe in God of the gaps. We believe you take science as far as it goes, but we believe fundamentally science can explain how nature works, but why nature exists is a metaphysical question. And it's outside of the realm of science.
Okay. It's fine if you...
Say ta-da!
But we didn't have any
So we didn't disagree much.
No, it's not that we didn't disagree. I actually think we quite disagree on some.
No, we disagree on theology, but we can't disagree that currently, as it stands, there's no explanation for the origin of reason.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I'm fine with it, and I'll just wait for another 50, 100 years or whatever there is to wait for the answer.
But the thing is this: there's two different things here. There is a scope. So science is based upon mathematics and logic, right? Now, science cannot give you an explanation of mathematics. You need pure logic for that, right?
Okay.
Science is based upon logic and based upon maths.
Yes.
So you can't use science to explain the thing that it's based upon. The origin of reason is a foundational problem, and from that you get the scientific method. So in the same way that science cannot explain its foundations, science cannot explain the origin of reason in a naturalistic point of view, unless you basically say, what we're going to do is we're going to take a anti-realist approach to science and say it only gives you workable models, and say this is the best workable model that we actually have. But you can't say it's true, you can just say it's a workable model.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's how, we get to some models indeed that describe the reality. It's just, for me, as an atheist, it just baffles me, why would I include in this model something that I have no proof of, or evidence of. We
don't include God within the equations of science. God is the one who gave us the ability to reason. God is the one who gave us the Quran. He's the one who gave us the guy who's a Quranic scholar who came up with a scientific method. Science is a way of discovering knowledge about how the world works. We don't go within the equations of science or the sentences of science and rub out a few things and write God. We don't do that. We stay outside of that. We understand that science is an application of reason to the natural world. We go wherever science actually goes. Now what we're actually speaking about when it comes to atheism or theism is not science. We're speaking about metaphysics.
It's fine.
Which is a different thing.
But now the thing is that very so often religious people or theists or even books of religion claim to know how things work. They give a model of how things work or show it, and then you had this rebuttal to Rob saying, we had smart people 1,000 years ago, and you can't say, that they were stupid people. No, they were smart people, but their model was based on something that, it was based on putting God in many instances as saying, we're sick because I'm sinful.
No, but not everybody did that. And the people who what they actually did is they didn't didn't distinguish between science. Well, there was no science then, but the natural world and metaphysics.
Yes.
So it all became kind of like cause and effect. Is there even such a thing as cause and effect, or is it that in between an angel comes or something like this, right? So I would say these are people who got their wires mixed up. They confused. They started adding God into areas where the explanation of God is an explanation which is not in contradiction with a naturalistic explanation. So I'm just going to give you something, right? So in the Quran, in chapter 67, which is the Dominion, it gives an example of this sort of relationship. Now what it basically says is this. If you just bring up 67. It says, God says, do you not see the birds up in the sky, flapping their wings? None holds them up except God. Okay. Now this verse has two types of explanation. It has a mechanical explanation and it has a metaphysical explanation. Surah Mulk.
Yeah.
Where's the verse on the bird?
It's on the Kafir.
It's near the beginning. So it's giving you two types of explanation. So I, as a Muslim, the way I approach science is this. I approach science not as something which should take somebody away from God, and which is something which really annoys me when people try to use science as a tool to get people away from God. Science is a way of worship for me. Because discovering about the world, understanding about the beauty of the world is something which should bring us closer to God rather than further away from God. Just recently I was reading about a beetle, and this beetle actually has these two liquids. It's called a bombardier beetle, right? It's got these two liquids in its butt, whatever it is, right? Yeah. And what it does is it has this explosion chamber, it sticks them in there, an explosion happens and boom, it attacks its opponent. Now when I look at that, it reminds me of the creative power of God. Yet we have people today who, when you try to look at nature and try to remember God and think, you know, look how amazing nature is, you have people who say, no, you can't do that because Darwin showed that there's no God. Or Darwin showed that you can't reflect about nature in that way.
That's a silly argument.
That's a silly argument. That's all I'm arguing against.
Yeah. But the other thing is, what say Darwinist theory comes in is from idea, say in Christian. I don't know the Quran story, but in a Christian religion is that, you know, a female came out from a rib of a man.
Yeah.
So that sort of gives you a model of how things happened, which in that case evolution says it's probably not, because the model that we have shows that it's highly unlikely and the understanding we're having, and there's no proof to show that this has happened, or let's say there's no any sort of evidence, like even that can show that.
Two different things here.
So that's
two different things here. When it comes to the claims of science and what science can reach, and claims that we believe are from God, there's sometimes a clear discrepancy between the two.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to Darwinian evolution, theologically as Muslims, we know that it's based on a probabilistic framework with assumptions and disputes, but let's leave that aside. Theologically, where is the contradiction? You could say when it comes to human ancestry there is, but in regards to the rest of nature, the Quran is silent. But what we have to understand is when we use science to come to a particular conclusion, that conclusion may contradict a conclusion that is in the Quran or something else that we derive from another field, maybe in something else. Now, just because there's a contradiction doesn't mean you say, right, this is wrong and this is right, or this is right and this is wrong, or both are wrong, or whatever. You can actually take an epistemic approach and say, well, science gives you workable models, and which are then falsified, and you know, science is progressing and is changing over time. And we even have the case just about 70 years ago where there's a direct contradiction between science and the Quran. All the scientists in the world believed in some sort of eternal universe, steady state model or whatever, right? They believed in something like this. Einstein included it within his theory of relativity. Now, that contradicts the Quran, because the Quran says the universe has a beginning. Now, if I was a Muslim alive during the time of Einstein, I wouldn't go around challenging every single physicist. I would say, well, that's your science, you have a workable model, and that can change. Now we have Big Bang cosmology, which is in line with the Quran. Tomorrow, in 50 years' time, they could go back to the steady state model. So just because there's a contradiction between science and the Quran doesn't mean the Quran is wrong. Secondly, even today, in physics, we have general relativity, which is a really amazing model, lots of predictive power, and quantum mechanics, which is also very successful. Fundamentally, they both contradict each other. Yet scientists don't say, I'm going to reject general relativity and I'm going to go with quantum mechanics, or they don't say, I'm going to go with quantum mechanics and reject general relativity. They say, let's see where both these horses go. So there's nothing wrong.
They contradict each other.
Well, they do, fundamentally. Which is why they're trying to come up with the theory of quantum gravity. They're trying to make up some sort of synthesis, right? Science can only give you workable models, which can then be falsified. So that's all it can give you.
So now my question would be, like, why me, or why would anyone, say, leave a book or a creator as the model for their, you know, worldview? Yes.
Okay. The thing what you have to do is, you have to first go back to the belief in God, because without the belief in God, no claim makes sense from that perspective. So the question fundamentally is this: is there a God? For me, I would say God is a self-evident reality. God is not something which needs evidence. I have the concept of right and wrong within me. Right and wrong is not within a test tube. I don't have to measure it. You can't get a pH level of right and wrong. It's something within the human being, it's innate. So belief in God is a self-evident reality. It is true. Now, if I say come across someone who doesn't believe in God, I would simply say is this: the Quran tells us every single human being has an innate belief in God, which is sometimes covered by societal pressures and philosophies and ideas. And this the Quran refers to as the fitra, the natural state that the human being is in. And what the Quran says is, when the human being, even if the human being is a disbeliever, when they get into trouble, and the Quran gives the example of being on a ship, and when you're on a ship and it's about to sink and there's waves and waves and waves coming, what happens? People turn to God. Save us from this and we will be grateful. That's what it says in the Quran. So the fitra, which is the natural state that you're in, it can come out in two ways. When we use logic and reason, it can uncover the fitrah. When you have a spiritual experience, the fitrah is uncovered. So what I would say is, it's horses for courses. Some people are very spiritual, some people are very logical. So maybe you're more of a spiritual person. Maybe you need to have a spiritual experience to have an awakening. I would ask you, go home tonight, bow down to God and ask God to guide you. Because the Quran says, whoever God guides, no one can misguide.
Well,
so spiritual,
I have been doing that for a Christian God, but then...
Look, there's no such thing as a Christian God. There's God.
But look,
Christians, Muslims, Jews believe in the same God. All you need to do is this: don't say, I'm asking the Christian God. Say, I am asking God. And I believe Hamza, you're telling me about your story, he used to pray to just God, and God guides. And look, he's got a beautiful beard now.
it's fine if you have this